I am joined by Paul Bretl. You can find his work all over the place. And he's got, so here's the first thing I want to do is talk to you about, Paul, because you're doing the same thing that like I did and people are very familiar on this channel about what YouTube watch hours mean and what it means to get 1,000 subscriptions. So just like I asked all you guys, I need your help to get these subscriptions. Paul's got a YouTube channel where he's getting close on subscriptions and he's getting close on watch hours. So the same way you help me, you got to help out my guy, Paul, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would greatly appreciate it. Over on YouTube, it's just my name, Paul Bretl, Bretl.
You can also check him out on the Packers Wire, Dairyland Express. Follow him on Twitter, and he links everything there. He has done a really good job of covering the Packers, and we've interacted before, and we follow each other for a while. Mm-hmm. But here's the main reason I want to have you on is, so like the last 2 weeks, you know, I'm all over the place doing like national garbage and whatever. And I'm like, well, I need to know what happened at camp today. And so I like look, and there's an article that comes up, and I read it. And then there's like another article, and there's a tweet. And then I'm realizing they're like all yours. Like everything I'm reading is from you. And then so like now you're like the first guy I search out. I just think you've been doing an incredible job covering camp. And so first of all, good job.
Thank you. I do greatly appreciate that. It's been a blast. And this is, you know, I love the entire football season, but honestly, this is one of my favorite parts right now.
And Paul, you know, just like, you know, he's got a real job, you know, whatever, but this is a labor of love for him. Mm-hmm. And I think for a lot of people, I think like, and especially this year, this is a different year for the Packers. And, you know, there's been years where like I watch the training camp updates and I'm like, God, I don't need to know that Rodgers hit Lazard over the middle. But like this year, I do need to know. I need to know everything. And it's not just the Jordan Love stuff. It's just the complete different, I think, aura of what you're feeling up there right now, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look throughout this team and there's a lot of youth. And I mean, Matt LaFleur said it best, with some of that youth, some of that unknown comes excitement. And especially looking at this offense, obviously there's Jordan Love, but we look at the skill position players, there's tons and tons of speed and tons of versatility. So from what Matt LaFleur wants to do, what he wants to accomplish within this offense, there's going to be, you know, I think some different looks that we'll see this year from this, you know, Packers offense. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you know, hasn't been as much turnover, but there's some unknowns along the defensive front. And then they still have some big playmakers. Rashawn Gary will be back at some point. Of course, they got Jair and Rasul at cornerback. So again, it's like you said, it's a different feeling, but there's still this excitement because of that different feeling.
Talking about the offense first. So I don't know if Matt LaFleur is a good coach or not. I think that he is smart at football. I think that there's been a lot of instances where you can tell he's learning on the job. I think one of the things that he does a lot that he needs to stop doing is saying, oh, that's my fault. You say it enough, we're going to start to believe you, okay? But this Matt LaFleur offense, we're going to see the Matt LaFleur offense now that, you know, Rodgers isn't there and whatever. Have you started to see, are we seeing shades of it? Are we seeing a little bit more? Are we seeing kind of what we saw? Is it like a completely new offense where it's like, oh my God, where was this? What are, like, from an offensive perspective, how different does the team look?
I mean, in terms of what they're trying to accomplish and what they do, I don't think we're going to, you know, turn on the preseason or week one and be like, whoa, what is this? Where did it come from? But some nuance changes that we're going to see more of is attacking the middle of the field. You know, that's not something that Aaron Rodgers did very often. He preferred to go to the boundaries. But if we look at San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan offense, which the Matt LaFleur system comes from, you know, Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy, they were some of the highest in terms of quarterback percentage attacking the middle of the field. They were up amongst the top individuals over the last few seasons. So we're going to see more of that. And we've already been seeing that in training camp as well. That's where this offense, when they are finding success, I found that it's been Love going to the middle of the field. And again, that's an important part of the LaFleur offense. It gets these guys in space, gives them yards after the catch opportunities. And with the speed that they have, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, it can create some big play potential. So I think that's one area over the middle where we're going to see a big shift. And then as well as I expect the gadget, the motion role within this offense, take on a larger role as well from previous years. We've seen them kind of fill it here and there. There was Tyler Irvin. There was Tavon Austin that they brought in halfway through one season to kind of fill that role. But as the practices go on and they're getting, more established within their installs and getting deeper into the playbook, we're seeing that aspect of it become more prominent. And right now it's Jaden Reed and running back Tyler Goodson who are filling those roles for the most part. So again, I don't think we're going to see this huge shift, something completely different, but those are two things from being at training camp that have stood out as, the pendulum swung a little bit more in the direction of that being, those aspects being more prominent within the offense.
I think that the league, this is a Jordan Love question because I actually kind of didn't start with one, which I'm surprised at. I started more of a LaFleur one. But with Love, I think that, we know he had a good day the other day, and there's a couple plays that we like and we retweet and stuff. I am very curious and eager to see what happens if in week 1 he has 3, maybe 4 touchdowns. Like if he has a good week, like a really good week, I don't think the NFL, and when I say the NFL, I mean media, fans, broadcasters, anyone involved in this sport, I don't think anyone has prepared themselves for the possibility of Jordan Love being good. Jordan Love's either going to be very bad or above average, or he'll be like a Marcus Mariota. Nobody's prepared for Jordan Love to be good. Is he what have you seen from him to lead us one way or the other? Because what I'm seeing, just being at home 2 hours south, is that he might be good.
Yeah, with those throws that you mentioned, the one to Christian Watson, and then there was the pass to Jaden Reed. Reed didn't catch it, but it was a beautifully placed ball. I mean, that shows the ceiling that he has in terms of the ability to throw players open and not necessarily have everything schemed open for him through how the offense is operating. So that's obviously the ceiling that can be there. And, we go back to him coming out of college when he was drafted. We knew that he had the arm talent. It's about harnessing it. It's about finding the consistency, being accurate with it on a regular basis. So that I see as, glimpses of the ceiling. But on the other side, we saw those highlights on Twitter, but there was also an interception that bounced off of Quay Walker's chest. He's still very much been.
I'm not retweeting those ones.
No. Of course not.
I don't want people to see those.
He's still very much been, experiencing the learning curve that comes with a first-time starting quarterback. And Matt LaFleur said right now with Love, they're just focused on the process more so than the results, with the thought process being if the process is done consistently and done correctly, the results will take care of themselves. So what does that mean? It means getting in and out of the huddle efficiently, having a good base in the pocket, throwing on time, throwing on rhythm, the mechanics to be accurate, going through his progressions, sound footwork, mechanics when he's on the move. So that's what they're really diagnosing right now. And while there are still ups and downs, what I will say is I feel that even over the last week of practices, there's been 6 of them now, 5 of them have been at full speed, 2 of them in pads. We're starting to see a little bit more of that consistency in those processes, and it's leading to more of those wow throws that we're starting to see on, posted on Twitter as highlights and all of that stuff. So still searching for the overall consistency, but again, I think he's on the right track in terms of finding it.
This is the Bart Winkler Show. We are talking with Paul Bretl. This conversation is also in video form. You can see it on YouTube, on my YouTube page, which is brought to you by Dan Schani Insurance, danschani.com. Helps with your auto, home, business, and more. Paul is a YouTube page. Subscribe to this guy. We always talk about give him the Bart Winkler bump. The Bart Winkler bump is about 2 to 3 people.
All right.
So I would expect, if you get less than that, I'll be upset. But I would expect 2 to 3 more YouTube followers for Paul Bretl. and hope maybe 4. Maybe somebody else will come through. But just like you guys did for me to get me to that 1,000 mark, we need you to do for Paul because he's been killing it with the coverage. Also, we are brought to you by Happy Place Hemp. Happy Place Hemp, promo code BART, 25% off all your CBD needs. They've got the Delta 8s, Delta 9s, and much, much more. Depending on how the season goes, will probably depend on how much we take of that to pretend like things aren't happening. But that's the thing. I think that, like, I know that everybody's going to say, oh, well, it's just nice this year. There's not a Super Bowl here. There's not, we can just kind of like watch the football. And then, but if they start like 0-4 or 0-3, man, even if they lose to the Bears, it will be back to complaining and being mad about everything. This was a team last year that was 8-9, and I don't know that they deserve to be 8-9. Are they like? Where are they? What, are you watching a good football team? Is it sloppy? Could it be good? What's like your read right now on what kind of team this is?
I think everywhere in between of everything that you just listed.
It's not just Love. It's they're so young.
Yeah,
Rodgers came in for Favre, used the same team.
Mm-hmm.
Love comes in, it's like half the team's gone.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we look at the skill position players, receivers, and tight end, incredibly young, as you mentioned. There's been, some drop passes from those group with the tight end position specifically. I know it's talked about a lot. Matt LaFleur's mentioned it, but it's a difficult transition for those guys to the NFL, with all the responsibilities that they have, specifically as blockers. And we know that's a big part of the offense. So, I mean, there's an incredible unknown. If we fast forwarded and someone told me that they won 5 games this year, I'd believe you. If we fast forward and someone told me they won 11, I'd believe that too. And everything in between, because you can see the pieces of the puzzle being there. It's just all the unknowns and all the question marks. And I think as we look at, again, where this Matt LaFleur offense stems from, Sean McVay went to a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. Kyle Shanahan went to a Super Bowl and NFC Championship with Jimmy Garoppolo. Those aren't Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So it's not that if the LaFleur offense and system does what it hopefully can do, it's not as if Love has to come in and play at that level for this team to find that type of success. And again, I'm not saying that that's going to happen this year. I'm talking long term, but that's what you hope happens, the ability to get guys in space. You have that speed, you have that versatility, create mismatches, and then get them the ball in space where they can make big plays on relatively easier throws where the quarterback isn't always shouldering the burden or doing the heavy lifting of having to create those opportunities. So I think that's what the hope is. And in terms of the offense, I know a lot of the eyes are on Love and the receivers, of course, but any success that this group's going to have starts on the offensive line. And I know that's not the fun, sexy topic all the time, but if Jordan Love doesn't have time, it's not going to end well.
Yeah.
If the run game doesn't get going and this offense is facing 2nd and longs, 3rd and longs in predictable situations, maybe they'll prove me wrong, but I'm going to guess right now that it's not going to go well. The offensive line has to play well. They have to give him time in the pocket. They have to be able to create running lanes, and they're going to have to hold up against the blitz, because I'm going to guess that early on in the season, defenses are going to throw a lot of different blitzes at Love in this offense, some disguise coverages as well, where there's late movement before the snap. So what Love sees before the snap versus when he's up and looking around are 2 completely different things to try to confuse him. So offensive line is going to be so vital to the success of that team as a whole.
What is your favorite when you're out there watching everything? What's like your favorite group to watch? Is it the big uglies, or is it the sexy skill position? What do you like? What do you like to watch the most?
Right now, the position group that has me the most, I guess we'll say infatuated, maybe for lack of a better term, is the interior defensive line. Believe it or not, there's still a ton of question marks there, but one very noticeable change to me compared to past years is the speed that this group has. Devontae Wyatt's taken on a larger role. We, of course, all know what Kenny Clark can bring to that unit. They drafted Kobe Wooden, who tested elite athletically prior to the draft. Carl Brooks, another draft pick this year. The speed of that group is just so much faster, and we're seeing it in terms of their ability to get in the backfield very quickly at times, but also in the sideline to sideline movement when they're pursuing the ball carriers. And I go back to the Play Callers podcast that was presented by The Athletic.
Yeah.
It was focused on the offensive side, but they had Brandon Staley on there, the Los Angeles Chargers head coach. He comes from the Vic Fangio defensive coaching tree.
Worst coach in the league. Yeah, go on.
And Joe Barry was brought in to run a similar form of that. Well, when Staley was speaking, he mentioned that a big part of his defensive scheme being successful is up front having versatility and having speed. And I feel like over these last 2 drafts, that's really been a shift that Brian Gutekunst has tried to make in terms of personnel. Whereas we look at past, key contributors along with Clark, or next to Clark, I should say, Dean Lowry, Tyler Lancaster, guys who are just more space eaters, occupiers, rather than having that speed where they're gap penetrators and really trying to get upfield. So that's one noticeable shift in personnel. And it feels like it's, obviously been done intentionally to try to best give Barry the type of guys he needs up front. And again, I don't know how this group's going to perform. They're so young. Receivers, tight ends are getting the attention for youth, but outside of Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton's the next most experienced guy, and he's played fewer than 600 snaps. Wyatt's played fewer than 250, and no one else at the defensive line has any NFL snaps right now. I'm not sure what to expect from this group, but just from what I'm seeing compared to, I guess, what we're used to as Packer fans, it's just a noticeable change with that speed and that versatility that group has.
So is Clark on the edge right now? What are they doing with him?
Yeah, he's been at defensive end quite a bit, actually. And the hope with that is...
I have a hard time picturing that.
Yeah, he's not an edge rusher, but he's at the defensive end. And the hope with that is it's just going to be more one-on-one opportunities. The closer you get to the center, that's more potential double teams. And of course that, hurts your ability to make an impact. So that's something that could be really exciting for this defensive front this year. Because as we know, Kenny Clark in one-on-ones is going to be a good thing. Their go-to defensive line unit has been Clark and Wyatt at defensive end, TJ Slayton in the middle, and then 2 edge rushers on the outside of them. But yeah, this hopefully ends up being, because, as that being a factor, a really big year for Kenny Clark.
I feel like on the defense, whether it's Clark or whoever, I look at that depth chart. And last year, dude, I was one of my most wrong takes ever was I was so high about the defense. I thought they were just going to be like the greatest defense that we've ever seen. And it wasn't that way. I feel like, yeah, there's some questions at safety and they're trying to figure some stuff out here. And there's some guys that are hurt. But I feel like for the average Packer fan, there's like the potential of what the defense could be. And right when we can't even reach that point because we smack into the Joe Barry glass ceiling. Is that fair? Or is the defense not as it's not all his fault? Joe Barry, they're going to have to shut out every team for 10 weeks before anyone thinks it's Joe Barry's doing.
Yeah, I mean, at this point with the defense, I'm in hey, you got to show me right now before I'm buying into what this group can do. And yeah, there's definitely, changes that Joe Barry has to make. He has to be better, but there's a lot of things too where, the players were responsible for some of those bad plays as well. The tackling as a whole from this Packers defense last year was not good. On the back end, specifically at safety, just a ton of miscommunications, which led to coverage breakdowns into big plays. Their run defense, I mean, that's something that's been an issue for the Packers for a long time. So again, this isn't meant to be an excuse for the defense or for Joe Barry. At the end of the day, he's the guy in charge. He's the one making the decisions. But, that's also to say the players have to play better as well. And I think something, if we want to hold on to a little nugget of hope, of promise from last year, was the late changes that they made in the secondary, playing more cover 2, cover 6, really, and just allowing Jair Alexander to move around a little bit more. It's not as if he was moving during or before the snap with motion, but the Minnesota game really stands out to me in week 17 where Justin Jefferson came out of the huddle, Jair went to that side versus it early on in the season was Jair's just on the left or Jair's just on the right. So we saw some of those changes take place, many of them a little too late into the season for our liking. So something to hold on to, but I'm in the, like you said, I'm going to need to see them find success and do it repeatedly before I'm fully bought in of, all right, they're doing it right now. This is the defensive unit that we wanted to see. And similarly to offense, where it's in the trenches, defense is the same way. It's about the run defense. There's the third down stat from last season, I feel like really encapsulates this Packers defense and run defense. They were 8th best in football at getting off the field on third downs last year. When I first saw that, I was a little bit surprised. I didn't think it'd be that good. Where the issue came is they faced the fewest third downs per game. So what does that tell us? Well, when they were in third downs, it's because they had early down success. Teams are in third and longs. The pass rush is the strength of this unit. The cornerbacks are the strength of this unit. The pass rush can pin their ears back, get after the quarterback. Cornerbacks can play aggressively. However, the run defense struggled, so offenses are moving the chains before third down because they're in second and shorts or picking it up even before then. And at that point, the defense is on its heels, because the offense is dictating everything right now. So it all starts with this run defense being better in terms of the overall defensive picture improving. And to me, along the interior defensive line, we just talked about the questions that are there. That's the biggest one. They have pass rush options, but who, in addition to TJ Slayton, is going to step up and fill that role? Obviously, Kenny Clark's going to be a big part of it, but interior defensive line's heavily rotated. Kenny Clark can't play all the pass rush snaps and all the run defense snaps. So that means Devontae Wyatt, Kobe Wooden, Carl Brooks, maybe Jonathan Ford if he makes the team. These other guys are going to have to step up and really, really help out against the run.
So I want to bring up something that you just wrote about Carlson, the kicker. Because we talked defense here, we talked offense. And I did Steve Sparky Pfeiffer's podcast. I'll promote it for him, Curd and Long. But I was on with him, and he's like, I don't know if anyone cares. I might be the only one that cares. But why do they used to bring like 7 kickers in camp every year with Crosby. And it's just Carlson right now, and he's not doing great. Mm-hmm. I find it's weird because the Packers are like, they keep making all these moves on defense still. Like they're making a move every day. Mm-hmm. They're bringing in new guys on offense. They're like, and then there's this kicker thing that they just like don't care about, or what's the deal?
I think it goes back to what Brian Gutekunst said last week, and that not only Carlson, but the young players on this team in general, they need reps. And if we look at past years where they're bringing in others, even though they have Mason Crosby, I think a lot of that was just to, give Crosby some time off throughout the summer. Whereas here, they drafted Anders Carlson, and he needs all the reps that he can get right now. And this
with kickers, it's like just go to a school afterwards and kick 15 times if you didn't get your reps in. That's what I would be fascinated. I would just watch the kickers and be like, you get paid for this, huh? Wow. What a
job. So I think that's kind of where they're at. They just want him to get as many reps as possible. And if you're going to rely on a rookie kicker like they are, they obviously knew that there's going to be days like the last 2 that he just had. And really what they're looking at right now is how is he going to bounce back? They could, if the next week he struggles over the next week, I wouldn't be surprised to see them bring someone in, but I feel like they're also going to give him that grace in knowing that there's going to be ups and downs, there's going to be highs and lows, and really try to evaluate if they can, rely on him this season. And not to say that in past years, obviously the value of field goals and extra points don't matter. Of course they do, but when you have a young offense that at least throughout training camp here has struggled situationally in 2-minute drill, red zone, field goals and extra points are going to be at a premium because the Packers might end up relying on them quite heavily. And if you have a young kicker who's out there who's inconsistent and they're leaving points on the board, which until proven otherwise are probably going to be at a premium for this offense, I mean, that's a huge loss, a huge, huge blow to this team as a whole. So I get why they're giving him the opportunities. They want to see what they have, if he can figure it out, but it's also a dangerous game too, as well, for the reasons just mentioned.
I just find it so interesting. And I'm a big soccer guy. It's what I grew up playing. And I obviously still like it. It's this like this is contact. It's the most contact we get in any sport, and there's so much like chest moving that happens, and the defensive coordinator, the offensive coordinator, we're paying all these money to the quarterbacks, and sometimes these games just get decided on if a guy kicks it through it. I can't wrap my head around it.
I think part of like throughout, like Rich Bisaccia signed off on that draft pick, of course, and I think the respect or the clout that Bisaccia carries within the organization, like they're trusting him. He met one-on-one with Carlson before the draft. Like he flew down to Auburn to meet with him. He worked with his brother Daniel in Las Vegas and helped him turn his career around after his time in Minnesota. So I also think that's a factor in this as well, that and Gutekunst said Rich has a really good track record just in working with kickers throughout his career. So I think that that's playing a factor in this as well, that they're trusting him to help get Anders on track and where he needs to be, or hopefully at least close to it.
What is kind of sucks is that Rich Bisaccia might be the greatest special teams coach that we've ever had. And during the height of Rodgers' career, we had a bunch of idiots. And now we got this guy that is like the man.
It's definitely been, not only Bisaccia's obviously been a huge part of this and facilitating it, but it's that Niners game, that playoff game from a few years ago, it shifted the whole Packers organization, their mindset of how they view special teams. Like they would never admit it, but it was an afterthought. They're looking for offensive contributors, defensive contributors, and oh yeah, we need you on special teams too. Now look at their last two off seasons. I mean, this one in particular, Keyshawn Nixon, Rudy Ford, Dallin Levitt, Tavarius Moore from the Niners, Matt Orchek, the long snapper for the Rams when they won the Super Bowl. Like almost all of their additions this offseason have special teams value for this team. So Bisaccia's out, like I said, he's been a big part of it, but it's taken Gutekunst and the personnel staff to shift how they view that third unit as well, to help us finally see the hopefully continued progression moving forward.
Man, that is crazy. You're right. They had, like in high school football, who plays special teams? The kids that can't get on the field. And that's what the Packers do. But in the NFL, like that changes games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've seen
you block a punt and fall on in the end zone, and you just beat the Packers at Lambeau Field 10-7 or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
How did this franchise went through 2014 and it took them 8 years later to figure out special teams was important? What are we doing?
It seems that way.
Insane. Paul Bretl, you're doing a great job up there in Green Bay. Appreciate everything you're doing. Appreciate you coming on here. And make sure you follow this guy on YouTube because we are getting so close. If we can get another guy. Again, it's not the best part about YouTube is you are enjoying the content, but you're not paying for it. We're getting it from big Google. Okay. So that's what we need. So subscribe. And then when he monetizes it, watch the ads, click on those links, purchase the product, and help him out. Paul, I appreciate you, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Bart. This was a blast. Greatly appreciate it.